President Biden is in an unenviable position of having to navigate U.S.-Israeli relations with Netanyahu, who he's known for decades. And, you know, Biden's record in terms of being a supporter of Israel, I think, is unblemished and it's unquestionable. But your thoughts about how the reaction has been by the Biden administration dealing with the announcement of not sending certain munitions if this invasion of Rafah occurs by Israel?
Well, it's pretty significant. It's not unprecedented. It has, in the past, the United States government has held back military equipment and supplies to Israel. And there is this long history of decades of a very important and reliant by Israel on the United States for all sorts of weapon systems. So it's significant for a range of reasons, including, even though it's not unprecedented, does not happen that often. And because of exactly what you said about President Biden's relationship. Now, he's had a rocky relationship with Prime Minister Netanyahu over the course of several decades. And what's also important to remember here, which often is forgotten, is Prime Minister Netanyahu is not exactly thriving in popularity as a leader in Israel right now. That was true before the horrific events of October 7th as well. So that aside, I mean, there's an element here that's Netanyahu's politics, where he is there's an incentive in some ways for him to continue military action. It's a good news, as John Kirby said, that they are pausing. That would have a devastating impact. But yes, for President Biden, for the national security team, what they're trying to gauge, the biggest impact they can have right now is to move toward a ceasefire. A lot of those conversations, the majority of them, Katie, which makes it hard to do what you're doing, what I'm doing, is they happen behind the scenes with Bill Burns and Brett McGurk and others. So we don't know all the details of them, but this is an effort to use leverage. It's a good thing. Let's hope the leverage works.
Yeah, and, you know, while President Biden is dealing with these geopolitical crises, he's also running a campaign to stay as the incumbent president. I want to shift us back over domestically here to the United States. The Trump campaign announcing that it's going to run a leaner campaign machine. I was speaking to Susan Del Percio last night, and she said that just means that they're not having the campaign cash to do this. But look, Trump may be campaigning later today, Jen, on the Jersey Shore. Remember, he's in court, right? Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. I personally think he could be campaigning more if he really wanted to. But your thoughts about hearing something as big as the Trump campaign machine now not having a ground operation in key critical battleground states and not having enough people to actually work to be able to make this happen for Donald Trump?
This is pretty important. It doesn't mean it's the only factor, far from it. Also, the last couple of weeks, Katie, on Wednesdays when he's off, which is probably the only day you get any rest either, he met with people who had purchased NFTs. If they bought $10,000 in NFTs, they got a piece of his tie and his jacket, apparently. And a couple of weeks ago, he played golf on his Wednesday off. So he could certainly be campaigning more. But this is significant because the nuts and bolts of campaigns are about organizing and about getting people out to vote. You need staff to do that. You need a functioning, working national party and state parties to do that. That's also something that's not happening on the Republican side. And you do need money to do that. So these are all disadvantages that the Trump team has. And I agree with Susan Del Percio. Running a leaner campaign is kind of something you say when you can't afford all the staff or ads or things along those lines.
And I really want to quickly pivot right now to your book. As I emphasized at the beginning, it is amazing. You obviously worked in the White House as a press secretary. Your book is all about messaging and communication, imparting that wisdom and even some rules of thumb for readers. No spoilers, please, Jen, because I definitely want people to read your book. But a couple of those rules of thumb that you think would apply no matter if you're in the White House or outside of the White House.
I mean, one of the things I've learned, and you and I have talked about this before, I mean, feedback, being able to provide feedback and give feedback and take feedback yourself is so important. Listening is an undervalued part of communications. It's pretty important as well. I talk a lot about being the victim of bullies, including for me, the Kremlin. What do you do in those cases? So yes, everybody's not going to be briefing from a podium or hosting a television show like you are, right? But there are a lot of things that are applicable in here. And as you know well, nothing is more humanizing than trying to communicate with your kids. And sometimes it's hard, and we're all ineffective at times, and I talk about that quite a bit in the book as well.
And Jen, that's a perfect segue. I've got less than a minute, but I do want to ask you, I want to wish you an early, happy Mother's Day. You and I have talked about work-life balance. It's a unicorn. You know, it doesn't exist, I frankly think, and I think you would agree. We got to triage when we do on a daily basis to make sure that that happens. But talk a little bit about the challenges that it's been for you to be a mom and to also have such a major role in all of the professions that you've had.
Well, I would say the same to you, Katie. And I would say the thing I've learned is you've got to redefine what it is. And it's easy to try to fit the models of others. So I'm going to take you for an example. You are traveling a lot. You're covering courts, your court cases all over the country. You're in the courtroom. Part of your daughter's story is your being a badass lawyer who hosts a television show. That's part of her story. You may not be there for every bedtime, but that's also a model. So I try to keep in mind, for me, that part of my story for my kids is the things I've done as well. And it means that I'm not always following the model. I'm a different model, as are you.
I think they broke the mold when they made both of us. Jen